Hi everyone, Chelsea here. Before we dive into this week's thrilling folklore episode, we wanted to share a quick ad for one of our indie podcast friends. The episode will be starting right after. We hope you enjoy.
Some people start their week with coffee. Ale starts hers with ghosts, mysteries, and things that go bump in the night. Welcome to Macabre Mondays, the podcast where mysteries meet the macabre. Join Alejandra, a lifelong storyteller with a passion for the strange and spooky, as she shares chilling tales with her husband Tom, who's hearing them for the very first time. It's part marriage, part mayhem, and all mystery. Your weekly escape into haunted history, unsolved oddities, and the darker corners of life. New episodes drop every Monday, so ditch the morning blues and press play on something a little more macabre. Listen to Macabre Mondays wherever you get your podcasts.
From folklore and fairies
to monsters and mysteries, it came from the Maritimes.
In a dusty red coat with a red right hand, my co-host Evan.
The final girl, my co-host Chelsea.
Hi everyone, welcome to It Came From The Maritimes. Today we are sharing an iconic Nova Scotia folktale, which is known worldwide and has recently been featured in a docuseries by Makima Productions, a Nova Scotia-based company. If you remember from our past episode on the Hide-Behinder of Dagger Woods, the Antigonish area is full of spooky stories. It's thought to be the site of numerous hauntings and a fairy hill. The tale we're sharing today of the fire ghost of Caledonia Mills is one of those stories that cemented the area's haunted reputation. The topic of this folktale has historically been referred to as the Fire-Spook of Caledonia Mills or the Tale of Mary Ellen's Spook. So you might have heard those stories. Evan, have you ever heard this tale before?
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of unavoidable when you're looking into folklore, especially kind of spooky folklore of Nova Scotia. You're going to find this story.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive right in. Caledonia Mills is a small farming community about 25 kilometers outside of Antigonish. A couple named Alexander and Janet Macdonald lived there with their teenage daughter, Mary Ellen, who they adopted from a close friend. Their life on the farm was a peaceful one, until January 1922, when odd occurrences started to happen. The first odd event was that belongings were found in unusual places all over the property. Some of the smaller items being moved, they originally blamed on the dog, but they soon came to realize he simply couldn't be responsible for the relocation of certain objects, such as heavy cast iron skillets, which would be found leaning against the fence on the property perimeter.
I want to know how big this dog is before I cast judgment.
That's a good question. My research didn't reveal that. Without reason, their animals would be found loose from their stalls within the barn, even though Alexander started using increasingly complicated knots to tie the gate shut. He even found his horse's tail braided in elaborate plaits, similar to the lutins from our Fairies of Cape Breton episode.
I was about to say, this is sounding like some fairy stuff.
It kind of is, because also ashes would be found in the milk, which they had been storing carefully. And I remember in the lutin folklore, it also involved ashes as a way to deter them.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
So we might have cracked the code on this one already.
Hoo-hoo. Mystery hunters.
We are. On January 11th, 1922, Alex noticed some burnt pieces of wood on top of the stove and realized that the rafters above it were charred. He added cleaning the stovepipe to the top of his to-do list. He didn't get a chance, though, because that night, a fire started. Janet woke up to the smell of smoke and alerted Alex, who ran downstairs to see the kitchen chair and sofa on fire. They were confused as to the origin of the fire because there was no obvious cause. The furniture hadn't been anywhere near the kitchen stove or fireplace. They extinguished the blaze, but as soon as they did, another fire started in an empty room down the hall. They didn't know what to make of these fires because they had an unusual blue hue. The spontaneous fires started to erupt all over the house. There were dozens of fires they could not explain. 38 were counted in a single night. The fires would start blazing all over the house, in the loft upstairs, the guest bedroom down the hall, the window curtains, inside locked cupboards, the dog's bed, and even a wet dish rag sitting in a puddle of water on the floor caught fire at one point.
Jeez, that's rough.
Right, that's it. There's no hope at that point. The family was distraught and they were unsure of what to do. There was no reason for these fires. Alex even poured a bucket of water down the chimney to ensure there were no lingering embers that might have escaped. It was a cold winter, but the family was terrified of more fires, so they decided to leave the stove off, even though it was absolutely frigid. The fires continued appearing even after the stove hadn't been lit, so the family suspected an arsonist. and they enlisted neighbors to help guard their home. But no culprit was ever caught. One of the neighbors helping reported that the whole house appeared to be illuminated by hot blue electricity. Neighbors reported other odd occurrences, such as being followed around the Macdonald property by a black dog unfamiliar to them all, and seeing a bare arm waving a white rag from the upstairs window, even when no one was up there. Needless to say, the community was shaken, and the Macdonalds were eventually driven from their home by the unexplained events. So a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame them for leaving. 38 fires in the night that's a lot of fires, and you just wouldn't be able to sleep anymore.
Oh, exactly. And now one of the things about folklore is there's different tellings of these tales. So some of them say that all of the fires took place just on a single night, whereas other people seem to think this was spread out over a couple of days.
Okay.
Now I think the truth has likely been lost to time, but either way, a lot of fires.
Yeah, no kidding.
Especially like the fact that they were in locked cupboards and in a puddle of water. It's just very unusual. So, of course, this event was a source of public speculation. On January 16th, 1922, the home was visited by a reporter from the Halifax Herald named Mr. Whidden, who wanted to write an article on the events. His curiosity was piqued after this initial visit, so he returned shortly after, accompanied by the Pictou police chief, Mr. Carroll, and Alex Macdonald. This time he intended to stay 3 days. The inside of the home had scorch marks on the wall and all along the blinds. And while they were in the home, they kept hearing a banging sound, like someone was hammering upstairs, even though when they checked, there was no one else on the property. Whidden felt like someone slapped him on the arm at one point, so needless to say, they cut this trip short.
Fair enough.
Right, wanted to come back better prepared. In March 1922, Whidden returned with a parapsychologist, Dr. Prince, from the American Society of Psychical Research. They wanted to do an investigation. Dr. Prince encouraged Whidden to try automatic writing while inside the house. The first few tries were unsuccessful, and they were about to give up. But Whidden started to feel an odd prickling sensation in his fingers and hand, so he asked Dr. Prince to lead him through the process once more. And this time, it was successful. The pencil started moving across the page, seemingly of its own accord. At first, nothing meaningful appeared on the paper, just shapes and lines, but eventually they started forming words. The papers were never shared with the public, but a few lines from the automatic writing exercise were shared. So here's the conversation that followed. Evan, will you read the questions?
Of course. Who set the fires in the Alexander Macdonald home?
Spirits.
Why?
The pencil tapped on the paper, leaving small black marks, and then a voice spoke through Whidden, telling only Dr. Prince to remain.
Did you slap the arm of Mr. Whidden when he and Detective Carroll were staying here?
Yes.
Why?
I wanted him to know the fires were caused by spirits.
And the animals in the barn, who let them loose?
I did. The spirit then wrote that it would no longer appear as long as people stayed away from the farm. The spirit also shared that they knew the reason the fires were started, but Dr. Prince refused to share that information in the report, so it's been lost to time.
Oh.
So based on this automatic writing session, Dr. Prince came to the conclusion that the fires were started by Mary Ellen, the adopted daughter of Alex and Janet. He claimed that she was temporarily possessed by the spirit and forced into a dissociated state, making her unaware she had committed the actions. Now, there is a long history of poltergeist activity being blamed on teenage girls, so this isn't uncommon, but it seems like based on the limited information we have of the automatic writing session, it seems kind of random.
It seems like even the spirits are just kind of like, oh, it's spirits who did it. And then he's just there like, so it's obviously this teenage girl.
Right? Obviously the woman. Dr. Prince said, and I quote, "The girl has the mind of a 6-year-old child. She is obsessed with the spiritual world and has demonstrated all of the symptoms of someone suffering from delusions inspired by childhood trauma. In my opinion, the fires were set by human hand, devoid of guilt." The police chief, Mr. Carroll, disagreed with this conclusion, so he didn't pursue Mary Ellen as a suspect. But sadly, she couldn't shake this mark upon her reputation, and that's when she was given the nickname that lasted the duration of her life, Mary Ellen Spook. Mary Ellen defended herself, stating, "I have never set fires. I have never untied the cattle in the barns. I never plaited the tails of the horses. I would have been afraid to. First they claimed I had a boyfriend, a sweetheart who did it, and now they say I did. I tell you, I don't care who Dr. Prince is. He ought to be ashamed of himself. That's quite well spoken for a woman who was accused of having a 6-year-old intellect.
I was about to say, that seems, I think that they're really going off on something on poor Mary Ellen.
They are. There were a few theories behind what could have caused these fires, because there were a few incidents the family thought of in hindsight that might have contributed to the fires. So the first is a tale that takes us back to the year 1900. Janet's 88-year-old mother had severe dementia and had been moved into the poorhouse, so the family took her in to live with them. Sadly, she was going through a lot of difficulties, and even though they locked her door at night, she would escape and they'd find her wandering around the property screaming. In April of the year 1900, Janet's mother became enraged and screamed at Janet, "I hope the devil comes and takes you before 9 o'clock tomorrow morning," which is very specific.
Yeah, no kidding.
Not 10 a.m., before 9.
Mm-hmm.
At that moment she screamed, a strange black dog apparently ran into the mother's bedroom, which, if you'll remember, people saw a strange dog on the property the night of the fires. This dog barked 3 times, disappeared under the bed, like it ran under the bed and no one could find it, and then Janet's mother died that night.
Oh.
So, in odd occurrence, and why something would happen 22 years later, we don't know, but that was one story the family recounted. And another possibility was that rumor had it that a few months earlier, after a fight, Alexander's brother, Andrew, had screamed a curse at the family before leaving the house, saying, "You will both be driven out from your house on a night worse than this one." And he screamed it in Gaelic.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have a couple of family curses, not ideal.
I mean, a classic 2-curse family.
That's it. They're getting it from multiple directions.
I mean, either side, too, from both Alexander and Janet's side, so it's good.
They're doomed. There was another local rumor that stated a stranger was seeking shelter one night at the Macdonald farm, but the family denied him. And when they did so, he placed a curse on their household and ran off. So they claimed that once he did that, Mary Ellen started going into trances.
A little bit of a Beauty and the Beast type of thing there.
Yeah. There are a lot of other theories, ranging from Balkans, which check out episode 15 to learn more about them. People also thought there might be a vampire responsible. Why? I don't know. I haven't heard a ton about vampires and fires.
Sometimes vampires are just doing stuff.
Right? Other people thought it was swamp gas. So, Evan, which do you think was most likely?
I mean, there's a part of me that's just trying to think, what could cause all these fires? Because you do hear things about, spontaneous combustion and stuff like that. But I mean, there could just be some sort of gas leaks or something like that in the house, I'm wondering. But you would think that if there was something like swamp gas, you would think that the house would have just burned down after they left.
Yeah.
Whereas it seemed like it was when they were there. So it's either something was after them or something was caused by them, be it supernatural or not.
That's a very good point. The Macdonald family returned to the farm in May of 1922, hopeful the chaos was in their past, but unfortunately, the fire started again shortly after. The family put up with the spontaneous blazes until June, but then, fearing their safety and more publicity, Alexander and Janet moved to Alder River. Alex sadly died of influenza the next year, and Janet died of a 3rd-degree burn in 1930.
Does anyone know any information about that 3rd-degree burn, if it was related to any of these fires?
No, I think it was just a normal fire, not one of the spontaneous ones. So what became of Mary Ellen? That is up for debate. Honestly, each resource I read had such a different take on what happened to Mary Ellen. I would love, if anyone knows the confirmed history, please do reach out, because I would like to know that information. So some say that she stayed in the Antigonish area for a year after the incident, working as a servant. But when she couldn't shake her negative reputation, she moved to New Glasgow, where she was recruited for a freak show. But when that didn't pan out, she moved to Ontario and got married. Others say that after the second set of fires, she was arrested and sent to the Nova Scotia Home for the Insane, where she was confined for years before moving to Ontario. Either way, she did pass away in Ontario in the summer of 1988, and her remains were sent back to Nova Scotia. The property still exists, but the land is barren. Locals claim nothing will grow there. Rumor has it, if you take anything off of the property, you too will be afflicted by the fires that cursed the Macdonald family that harrowing winter. I certainly wouldn't take the risk.
I was about to say, I don't think I'm going to go near that property.
Nope. Today, I'm very excited because we have a listener ghost story to share as our segment. I'm so excited. If other folks have their own stories, please always reach out. We love sharing these. So this is from Sean. I just started listening to your podcast, and I'm loving it and how you end with a short folklore snippet. I'm not sure if you're still looking to hear about the encounters of other people, since I've started at the very beginning of your show and I'm working my way through, but I had my first ghostly encounter and thought I would share it with you. Hopefully you enjoy it. I can't wait to dive back into your show. The year was 2019. I had returned from living abroad and was gradually getting back in touch with mates that I used to hang out with. One particular friend of mine had moved down to Antigonish County, Clare, and was living with his girlfriend at the time in a small caravan. Think of Father Ted going on holiday and you've got a fair idea of the size of the thing. This caravan was located on a decent stretch of land about a half-hour's drive outside of Ennis. I don't wish to give the exact location because the parents still lived there. The place would be the perfect setting for an escapist horror mashup of Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead with a sprinkling of Harry David Thoreau's Walden. I honestly love the picture being painted.
This is something, yeah.
There are trees on either side of you as you drive up a dirt road that frequently becomes a mini lake during heavy rain, and when the rain comes, the road is impassable and you are very much isolated. My mate and his girlfriend, let's call them Mark and Emma, were hosting me in their caravan, which is about a minute's walk from Emma's parents' cottage. It was a homely little place, and right next to it was a decent-sized barn that Emma's dad used for his work shed. I was always on the fence about belief in ghosts and other paranormal experiences, but not adverse enough to dismiss them outright. I like to think of the most rational explanations, and once all of them have been ruled out, I'll be more inclined to put them down to the paranormal. After this visit, though, well, I'm more of a believer. We spent the day catching up and getting to know each other again after a decent stretch apart, talking about the new bands we had been listening to and all that good stuff. We had also planned to take a trip up to Limerick to see the band, I apologize if I mispronounce this, Carrick and Gren.
Carrick Angren? Yeah, I might be wrong too.
We had also planned to take a trip up to Limerick to see a band perform in Dolan's on the Saturday. We had a few beers as well, but not so much that we didn't have our wits about us. I know that a story of an encounter can be easily dismissed when you mention alcohol was involved, but 3 beers isn't exactly a lot. Eventually, it came time to hit the hay, and we made our way to the caravan. I was at one end of it in a small bed that I struggled to stretch out in, and Mark and Emma were at the other end in their own bed. I didn't need much encouragement to crawl into bed. I was tired from the long journey and looking forward to a good night's sleep. I lay there waiting to drift off and was enjoying the silence. This was the kind of silence that you could hear your own heartbeat once you stopped your thoughts from racing. I couldn't tell you how long I was asleep, but someone or something stirred me from my sleep. My heart started racing as I felt hands press down on my shoulder, as if trying to wake me. I didn't dare open my eyes. The hands didn't have any malevolence behind them, but getting touched, without my consent I might add, a restful sleep does not make. I listened out for the creaking of the floor, thinking that Mark and Emma were playing a trick on me, but they were out cold. Their gentle snoring confirmed that. I didn't want to open my eyes for fear of what I might see, so I just started saying to myself, "Go away, go away." Whatever was there trying to stir me departed, and I was left awake for most of the night. The next morning, I asked Mark about it. "Did you have anyone try to wake you during the night?" "Nope," he said matter-of-factly. "Right, because I felt something pressing down on me." "Oh, we get a fair bit of activity around here," said Mark, as if this was completely normal. Emma chimed in, "Yeah, I'll be sitting here reading on the bed and hear footsteps on the gravel outside or someone say hello to me. It's all completely harmless, though. You've nothing to worry about." I didn't feel too comfortable after they informed me about the activity they get around the place, and the fact that it was so normal for them that they didn't feel the need to mention it to me. The second night, Mark was doing an apprenticeship at the time and had to venture off for a few hours before he could join us for a barbecue. That left Emma and me alone. We got to know each other a bit better since this was the first time we had met in person. She was a straight shooter, didn't mince words, but was one of the best humans you could hope to meet. We spent the day wandering around the large bit of land her parents owned, and came to an overgrown patch that had a stone shrine on it. Emma tells me, without a great deal of fanfare, that where we are standing are a series of unmarked and unbaptized baby graves that her parents had just learnt were on their land.
I feel like this was all said very casually in a way where there's your ghosts.
Right, that's it. There they are. This could have been something she said to try to get a rise out of me, but something about how she told me makes me believe her. I don't want to believe her because of the implications behind something like that, but I can't help it. Mark returned that afternoon and we got to work on the barbecue. After the previous night's event, you will understand that I was less than enthused to go to bed. But to bed I went. I was quite grateful to go to the confines of the caravan. The place took on an otherworldly feel at night, and I couldn't help but feel like I was being watched. I lay there, trying my best to fight off sleep, not wanting to relive the events from the night before, not wishing to be touched again, but I ended up slipping away. I couldn't tell you how long I had been sleeping when I felt it. Not the sensation of hands pressing down on me, but the sensation of the caravan being rocked from outside. Someone or something was rocking it as if trying to knock it over. I would like to point out that the caravan was strapped down to prevent it from toppling over. I can hear you saying it's just your mates playing a trick outside. If it was, I would hear their labored breathing. I would hear the sound of their feet disturbing the gravel. None of that was present. I was positively freaked. After the caravan stopped rocking back and forth, I lay there unwilling to open my eyes again because I am that much of a wuss. Sean, I don't think you're a wuss. I'd be in the exact same position.
No. Like, what do you even do there?
Right? I did try and stretch out my legs, but shot them back in an instant when something nipped at my feet. The feet nipping could have been the cat Rex who wandered about the place and came and went as he pleased, but I didn't hear him scurrying. The next morning, I asked Mark and Emma about the rocking of the caravan, and they were completely oblivious to it. I was wrecked and glad to be going home that afternoon. Another night spent there would have been too much for me. As I was sitting on the bed, my attention was drawn to a picture of a woman whose photo was fixed to the wall just above the bed. Emma noticed me looking at it. That's my aunt, she tells me. That's the only place the picture ever stays up. No matter where else we hang it, it always falls down. After Emma told me that, I began to think it might have been her aunt who was trying to rouse me from sleep the night before. I didn't dwell on it any further and was happy to step outside for a coffee. A few months had passed and I was invited to stay with them. Mark informed me that they had acquired a new, larger caravan so I could have the smaller one to myself. But I politely declined. There's no way I would spend a night alone there. Thanks for taking the time to read my encounter. All the best.
I'm going to say Mark and Emma there are a little too casual.
They are. I'd be very freaked out if that had happened to me.
Yeah, I mean, but thank you so much for sharing your story. That was great.
Yes, that was a fantastic story. And I will say the title of it was An Irish Ghost Story, so.
I was about to say, you started saying the place names. I was like, that doesn't sound like Nova Scotia to me.
Right, I should have led with that. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of It Came From The Maritimes. You can find us on social media on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at It Came From The Maritimes, Blue Sky at ICFT Maritimes, and if you have any Atlantic Canada folklore you'd like to see covered or spooky encounters of your own, email us at itcamefromthemaritimes@gmail.com. We are also on Patreon, so check it out if you want bonus content. If you enjoy our podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It helps folks find us. So, Evan, do you have a folklore tip to end today's episode?
I do. So this folklore tip is, if your fire won't burn, it means someone is speaking evilly about you. I guess no one was speaking evilly about the Macdonald family because their fire sure was burning.
Was it ever? Thanks for listening.
Bye.